Well, hi there, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Real Estate Investing. I'm your host, Sharon Vornholt, and I'm happy you're tuning in today. Today, we are going to talk about raising capital and specifically about the three biggest mistakes real estate investors make when raising capital. My guest is Dave Dubeau, and Dave is a podcast host and the creator of the Money Partner Formula. His newest podcast is How to Raise Capital 101 show, and I know folks are going to love this one. Dave and his team work with mom and pop real estate investors, providing done-for-you marketing services to help them raise capital. And he lives in beautiful British Columbia. Hi, Dave. Welcome to the show.
Sharon, it is a pleasure. It seems like we just saw each other.
I know, like 5 minutes ago, right?
Exactly. I had the pleasure of interviewing you on my show, which is always a great, it's a fun time.
Well, thank you. So for folks that don't know about you, what started you down the path of real estate investing and then led you to the world of raising capital, private money, and that sort of thing?
Abject desperation.
I love that answer.
Yeah, I got involved. Well, actually, I was thinking back on this, Sharon. I got involved in real estate investing, dabbling in it, when I was living in San Jose, Costa Rica, of all places, which I lived there for 10 years from 93 to 2003. And I ended up doing a couple of what we would call pre-foreclosure type deals down there. That worked pretty well. And I had a language training company down there, got married to a Costa Rican, had a couple of Costa Rican kids. And then in 2003, we decided to pack everything up and move back to the frozen hinterlands of Canada. And people, especially Canadians, go, Dave, you're insane. What
were you thinking?
Tropical paradise. Yeah, tropical paradise, frozen hinterlands of Canada. Why? Well, here's the thing, Sharon, like a lot of us, we don't realize how good we've got it until we leave for a while. So for all of the faults that Canada has, it's got a lot going for it. Climate not necessarily being one of them, but we got a lot of things going for us. And we just, my wife at the time and I just thought, hey, it'd be better for us to raise our kids in Canada than in Costa Rica. Lovely as it is, being the pasty-faced white guy you can see I am, whether you have money or not, in Latin America, people assume that you do. And there's a bit of a target on your back and that of your family members as well. So it doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while, somebody gets kidnapped, held for ransom, that sort of thing. It doesn't happen in the small town I live in British Columbia, Canada. So that's why our kids were getting towards school age. We moved back. Where the abject desperation comes in is, when I came back to Canada, I've been gone for so long. I didn't have bad credit. I had zero credit. I had been self-employed for so long, I was pretty much unemployable. Plus, I didn't have any great skills anyhow. I had not been able to sell my business in Costa Rica, so I was darn near broke, didn't have a heck of a lot of money. So there I was, stressed out, up late one night. And Sharon, I know you probably remember these. Do you remember those infamous late night infomercials?
I do.
You too can get rich in real estate with little or no money down.
Money down.
Yeah. I thought, perfect. That's what I got. Little or no money. So I set away for this course. Now I'm up here in Canada. The course was from an American guru. So I got a whole bunch of binders and CDs and maybe even a VHS cassette or two. I can't remember, but a whole bunch of stuff. I think they sold it by the pound. And I went through all this stuff. And I started like you did back in the day. I started doing creative deals, not so much wholesaling, but different kinds of strategies, no money, low money down type stuff. I had to translate a few things into Canadian, but it's all basically the same stuff. Everything works the same up here as in the States. And my first kick of the can was I did 18 deals in 18 months doing these creative, low money, no money down type strategies. And then that's what got me going. Then a few years later, I switched strategies into a little bit more of a conventional type way of doing real estate, where I actually had to come up with down payments and buy properties, focusing on single family homes there. By that time, I was able to self-finance my first couple of deals, and then I hit that wall. I'm sure a lot of your followers and listeners can relate to that. You run out of cash, you run out of credit, and you can't do any more deals. And that's when I started my path, my painful path to learning about raising capital.
So was that course Kirkland Sheets by chance?
It wasn't, but it was a very
What?
close cousin of his. It was Ron LeGrand.
Oh, Ron LeGrand. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. You went big. Well, you went big time.
Exactly.
Well,
So, yeah.
it's been my experience that almost all real estate investors wait too long to raise capital. Like kind of like you did and a lot of us did. You wait till you can't get any more money. You need money and you are out of options. And then you've got to go to somebody and you're in that uncomfortable position of needing money. So
Kind
when
of
should
reminds me of
people
my dating life, Sharon, back in the day when I was a single guy, right? You don't want to be that desperate, needy, creepy person. Yeah. So have you ever heard that expression? I hear so many real estate gurus, supposedly real estate gurus out there saying this, just find a good deal and the money will magically find you. Have you heard that one?
Oh, definitely.
I'd like to
Definitely.
figure out who invented that in the first place. I'd like to find him. I'd like to smack him upside the back of the head for doing us all a huge disservice. I completely disagree with that statement unless you've done some work ahead of time. But for most of us as mom and pop real estate investors, just like you said, that's the worst time you want to be trying to raise capital to bring investors on board, is when you desperately need it. So of course, I wasn't smart. I didn't know that ahead of time. So my three biggest mistakes that I like to talk about, Sharon, are all big mistakes that I made when I first started trying to raise capital.
So should people start? Let me ask you one more question before we dive into the three mistakes. Should people start with family and friends?
I think they should. Yeah, definitely. So there's a couple of big concepts that I've come to kind of call my foundational concepts when it comes to raising capital. The first one is the chicken and the egg, which should come first, the money or the deal. Get your investor ducks in a row first, then go finding deals. It just makes your life so much simpler. And then the other one is who to focus on first when you're first getting started with raising capital. So this ties in beautifully with one of the big mistakes, Sharon, actually, which is thinking that everybody and anybody with a pulse and a checkbook could be a good prospective investor. And I don't know about you, but I see a lot of people floundering around desperately trying to raise money. I was guilty of that myself. But these days they're posting stuff on Facebook, on social media. Hey, I've got a great deal. Have you got money? I'm offering this, guaranteed that, yada yada, all this kind of stuff. And they're going out to the general public. And that's a bad idea for two reasons. Reason number one is just logic and common sense, right? So, Sharon, I'm not sure. Give me an idea. What the price range of the kind of houses that you're looking at? What kind of prices are they typically?
150, 200.
So 200,000. Let's say $200,000. You probably need, give or take 20-25% down, plus some money for renovations and that sort of thing. So, if you were bringing on a joint venture partner or an investor, they probably have to be bringing at least $50,000 to the table to do one of those kind of deals. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we got to be logical.
Probably more. Probably more.
So let's say it's 75,000. So if we're trying to bring somebody on board to invest 50 or 75,000 or more with us in a deal, that person needs to know you, like you, and trust you with their money. We're going out to absolute strangers. They don't know you. They don't trust you. They certainly do not trust you with their money, right? So that's starting from scratch. That's a very difficult thing to make happen, especially when you need to raise the capital really, really quickly. So logic's reason number one, and then legalities are reason number two. Now I'm going to cover my butt here, Sharon, if you don't mind, and put a disclaimer saying that I am not a lawyer. I'm not a security specialist. I'm a real estate guy and a marketer, and I'm sharing my understanding. But here's my understanding, especially you folks in the States. You got this little regulatory authority called the Securities and Exchange Commission. You've probably heard of those guys, right?
Definitely.
Nasty organization to mess with. So you don't want to mess with them. And I believe each state has its own regulatory authority as well. We don't have it any better up here in Canada. We've got our own version, right? So basically they all say, hey, you and I as mom and pop real estate investors it's illegal for us to raise money from the general public
Mhm.
unless you're licensed to do so. So a stockbroker can do that, a financial planner
Right.
can do that, yada, yada, mortgage brokers to a certain extent. Or you set things up in a certain way with certain corporate structures,
Mhm.
certain exemptions from the SEC, offering memorandums, all this kind of stuff, which quite frankly, is way beyond the scope of doing a little single family home type deal, right? So that's
Right.
why, for mom and pops, the safest, the fastest, the easiest place to start is by focusing 100% on your existing network, right? That's the safest place to go. That's the fastest place to go. It's the most logical place to go. Because again, remember, we got those three things: know, like, and trust. If we're going out to people in your network, friends, family members, coworkers,
Mhm.
business associates, etc., they know you. Hopefully they like you. And to a certain degree, they trust you. Maybe not with 50 or 100 grand just yet, but it's a lot easier to make that happen than starting from scratch with a stranger. Does that make sense, Sharon?
That makes perfect sense. So, and I'm sure people do this wrong all the time. They do, and they don't even know in a lot of cases that they're really standing on the edge of breaking the law.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They wouldn't do it on purpose. They're
Yeah.
just ignorant of the fact. But here's
Yeah.
the thing: the SEC doesn't care.
That's right. It's like the IRS. Ignorance is not bliss.
You mean I had to pay taxes? I didn't know. No,
Not an
it's
excuse.
not an excuse.
So let's dive into to these mistakes.
Yeah. So that's the first one. Just
Yeah.
thinking anybody and everybody with a pulse and a checkbook could be a good prospective investor. So Sharon, I'll illustrate this with my own painful personal experience.
Mhm.
So back in the day when I was starting to do this strategy, I self-financed my first couple of properties, ran out of cash, ran out of credit. And of course, that's when the perfect deal landed in my lap. And I remember always, right? I go, yes, this is awesome. All of my marketing and stuff's been working nicely, and I've got this great deal on the go. So I put it under contract, and I needed to raise $85,000. Now it was a little single family home and pretty basic transaction. So I think I had 2 weeks to remove the financing subjects there. And I remember hearing, hey, just find a good deal. The money will find you. But I knew I'd still have to do something. So I tried a whole bunch of different things. And one of the things I tried that speaks to this point of thinking anybody and everybody with a pulse and a checkbook could be an investor is I tried networking and schmoozing. Because somebody had said, hey, you need to raise capital, go out and turn every conversation into a real estate conversation, polish up your 30-second elevator pitch, commercial, whatever you want to call it. Out you go. So I went to the local chamber of commerce, B&I groups, Toastmasters, wherever the heck they let me in the room with my little business cards. There I'd go with my little 30-second elevator pitch perfected. And basically all I walked away with, Sharon, were a bunch of really strange looks, pocket full of business cards that went right in the shoebox and nothing ever happened with them, and massive failure. And none of that worked. And thinking back on it, it just makes sense, right? Because I was under the gun. I needed to raise 85 grand in a limited amount of time. I'd never done it before. And that desperation just oozed out of every pore in my body. Plus, there I am. I'm talking to strangers. They don't know me. They don't like me. They certainly don't trust me with 85 grand. Why on earth would they invest? It doesn't matter how good the deal looks. And it was a good deal for the investor. It just, there's no foundation. There's no basis there to start from. So that was a painful lesson I learned there.
So did you get, wait, back up here. Did you get the money?
No.
Okay, just want to be clear on that.
I failed miserably, Jared. So again, this is where these mistakes, because I made these three big mistakes. So that was the first one, thinking anybody could be a good prospective investor. The second mistake, well, actually the first mistake was waiting until I had this deal in hand and then scrambling like a mad person trying to raise the capital, because again, you're under the gun. Doesn't matter how good the deal is. You're just going to come across, they call this in sales, with commission breath, right? We've all had that experience where we know that salesperson absolutely needs to make a sale, and that desperation just kind of oozes from them. Well, that was me in this situation as well. So rushing out to everybody and anybody was another big mistake. And then the other big mistake is just being like a bull in a china shop. And I see a lot of people doing this, right? They've got a deal. They need to raise the capital right away. They're desperate. They're doing all this stuff. And then they start doing the Wolf of Wall Street type stuff. So I think around the time I was doing this, that movie came out, and Leonardo DiCaprio made cold calling look like fun, right? So I didn't have any experience cold calling, but I picked up the phone and started dialing for dollars, right? And I called, got rejected. And you got, 2020 hindsight, it just makes sense. Like, why on earth, even though these were people that I knew, why would they want to invest in such a rushed, desperate kind of situation, right? Plus, I didn't know what the hell I was doing with the phone calls anyhow. Plus, I'm talking to people that aren't really into real estate investing. So trying to explain a real estate deal to a non-real estate person over the phone is a big challenge. So that failed. I tried, I came up with what I thought was a brilliant idea. Part of it was actually pretty smart. I said, hey, if enough people see this deal, it's so good, it's going to sell itself. That was not a brilliant idea, but that was the idea. But then I came up with the other idea, which I put together a list of a couple of hundred people that I knew, got them all into a CRM or an email autoresponder type system. And then I emailed them. No, I spammed them. I
spammed them. Let's just be honest.
Spammed them. I'll just call a spade a spade. I spammed them with this PDF that I put together with a nice picture of the property and an overview of the deal and analysis and numbers and ROI and all this kind of stuff. And I remember it vividly, Sharon, because I was getting under the wire there. This was like Wednesday. Wednesday night, I sent this out. Friday, I needed to be able to remove financing subjects. And Thursday, I got up and I was so excited because this was the only thing that had shown any signs of life. I had a number of replies in my inbox and I was going, oh, thank goodness. Finally, something worked, until I started reading those replies. And basically they all said, hey, Dubeau, haven't heard from you in quite a while. One guy hadn't heard from me in 18 years. Sharon.
Oh my gosh.
This is the first thing. 18 years. And the first thing is basically, hey, it's Dave. I got the deals. Have you got the dough? Not quite that bad, but pretty close. And they all basically told me to take a hike. And that deal dissolved. I live in a fairly small community. So obviously I ticked off the seller because I tied up their property for a couple of weeks, ticked off my realtor, ticked off their realtor, I already had a tenant lined up for this property. They'd given notice where they were living before, ticked off the mortgage, everybody, small town, massive egg on my face. And when the smoke cleared and I quit pouting, that's when I sat down and I said, hey, you know what? There's got to be a better way to do this. And I thought about it and I said, hey, I know a thing or two about marketing. I've been involved in marketing for quite some time. Why don't I apply some intelligent marketing to this whole raising capital process? And instead of wait until I got a deal on the go, let's get some investors lined up ahead of time. And also, instead of chasing after these investors like a desperate, crazy person, why don't I use some smart marketing and get them to come to me, or at least to self-identify? It'll just be a much more pleasant experience for everybody. So that's what I started doing. Came up with what I call my money partner formula, by hook and by crook. It worked pretty well for me with those single family homes, raised just under $1 million for those deals. Then I moved up into multifamily properties, raised millions of dollars for the deals that I was involved in directly. But more importantly, since then, cumulatively, we've helped our clients raise well over $300 million and counting for their deals.
So you are raising money to put into your deals. You're not doing equity splits or straight out, or maybe you are. You doing equity splits? And maybe you should explain to people the different ways that you can use capital and private money.
Oh, there's so many different ways, Sharon. So, for example, when I was doing actually all of the ones I've personally done have been some version of equity split and revenue split. So when I was doing the single family homes, I would bring my investors on board as joint venture partners. So they would be on title on the property. They would actually qualify for the financing for the property. They would put up the money to purchase the property, the down payment, and then I'd be part of the deal, I'd be attached on the property as a caveat or something like that.
Oh,
on the
nice.
other end. And then with multifamily properties, typically you're working with a group of investors.
Right.
So again, it's going to be different depending on which, I can't speak exactly to that because a little different depending on which state you're in, which country you're in, that sort of thing. That could look more like a bit of a syndication or a group of investors. But the way we did it, they were all equity partners and getting a share of the revenue depending on their percentage participation in the deal.
So they were bringing all of the money to the deal, and you were, doesn't sound like you really brought any. They're qualifying for the financing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great idea. Now, finding people to do that must be a little bit tricky.
I didn't have any problem with it actually, because there's so many people that would like to get involved in real estate investing, but they really don't have the faintest clue of how to do it. They aren't going to take the time and expense to learn how to do that. They'd rather just partner with somebody who's already doing it successfully and go along for the ride. So a lot of people are really looking for more of a hands-free kind of an investment.
Did you find these people based on your credibility built up at that time? Because when you looked the first time, you did what a lot of people do. They need the money. They try to raise it, like you said, in a hurried way, and which makes everybody nervous. So this time, though, when you start at it from a different angle, it just works differently. People, you have time to nurture those people and to get them to see, like you said, a lot of people that don't understand real estate investing, they don't want to do it, but they want the profits that can come from it. So you bring your expertise, you bring your knowledge, and then they bring the money.
Yeah. So here's the secret sauce, Sharon. It's laser focusing on a target group of people. And I know 100% of this when you're doing your probate work, you know exactly who you're going after. You know exactly what you want to say to them. And then it's kind of a similar process. So the smart thing I did was come up with that list of a couple hundred people. And that's what I burnt a few bridges the first time around because I was so clumsy about it. But then when I went back and started doing it more intelligently, I was able to get a bunch of investors from that group. And I think that's the best, fastest, safest, and easiest route for most mom and pop real estate investors to get started with when it comes to raising capital. So our first step of our process is create a target group of a couple of hundred potential investors that you already have a pre-existing relationship with. So friends, family members, coworkers, business associates. Don't worry about trying to filter it. Don't assume anything. Don't assume you know who has money, who doesn't have money. Just really focus on this group, because you don't need 200 investors. Chances are, to do all that you want to do, you probably only need 3, 4, or 5 investors to really get things rolling. Challenge is we don't know who those folks are. That's why we need to start with a bigger group. So we start with that group, and then you set up some of the basic things that you need. You want to have everybody up in a CRM type system. You want to have a good website for being your online communication hub, your marketing hub. You want to have a really good presentation that you can walk people through to explain and show them how your deals work. Because you mentioned this. Here's what we always have to keep in mind, Sharon. You and I and your followers are all real estate enthusiasts, or as I affectionately refer to ourselves, as real estate weirdos. I say that with love and affection. It's not an insult, but you know what I mean. It's kind of true. We nerd out on this stuff.
We do. We do. I'll have to admit to that.
Most normal human beings don't, right? They'd rather Netflix and chill or whatever they're doing, right? So we have to meet them where they're at, not assume they want to become real estate enthusiasts like us. So all of our marketing, all of our investor presentation is at a Reader's Digest level. Remember good old Reader's Digest, right? It was written for grown-ups. It was written at a 13-year-old comprehension level, so it's easy to consume. Same idea with this. It's not that our investors are dumb. It's just that they're not nerds about real estate. So we got to keep it super simple. Right? And what's in it for them. So that's our foundation. Once we got the foundation in place, now we're ready to press go. And instead of doing what Dumb Dumb Dave did back in the day, which is, hey, I got the deals, have you got the dough? And I need it now. we're going to do something a little bit more intelligent, a little classier. And that is reconnect with people on a personal level first before we start talking business.
Mhm.
And when we walk through this and when we do this, we talk about a very simple 3 email sequence that we call a warm-up campaign. Drip, drip, drip. You send this out over about a week period of time. The first couple of messages are just kind of like, hey, Sharon, it's Dave. Chances are it's been a while since we connected. Just want to reach out, see how you're doing, give you a quick little update on what I've been up to, and hopefully we can reconnect. So blah, blah, blah. Here's what I've been doing. So I just assume people haven't heard from me for 3, 4, 5 years. Do a quick little recap of the family, the kids, the wife, the trips, the travel, the good stuff, what went well during the pandemic, what didn't go so well in the pandemic. So just kind of a nice little catch-up message. And then at the end of it, say, hey, well, enough about me. I've been blathering on too long here. How about you? Sharon, please hit reply to this email. Let me know how you're doing. I'd love to reconnect. And you can automate. Now, the beautiful thing is the technology, you can automate this stuff. So it goes out to all 200 people on your list in one fell swoop. And then here's the trick. When people respond, you have a genuine connection with them. You go back and forth a little bit by email. You know, if they respond back and they tell you what they're up to, have just a little bit of back and forth because there's capital in those connections. And then we have also one last message there, which I call the transition message. And this is where we give people the heads up that we're going to, number one, start keeping in better communication with them moving ahead. Number two, we're going to start talking about what we're up to with real estate investing. Number three, we think real estate's the best thing since sliced bread. And it's the best way for everyday folks like them and us to get a good return on our money. Number four, who knows, maybe sometime in the future, they might even want to partner with us and share in the profits of the deal.
Okay, so yeah, so right there, let me stop you. So right there, you're not going for the sell. You're saying maybe in the future, if this sounds like it fits. So you're actually seeding the idea to them.
I'm seeding it, but not pushing it. I'm just creating a little curiosity. And then the fifth thing I do with this message, Sharon, is I encourage them to opt out if they'd rather not hear about it. If you really rather not hear about it, you can always click unsubscribe at the bottom of any of my messages. You'll be taken off my list immediately. So that's.
And how many do that, Dave?
So let's say we have 200 people. What would you guess?
20%?
What's that?
20%?
Yeah. So typically we've done this a couple of 100 times over the years with clients. We get somewhere between 3 and 6 people opting out.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Very low. Here's why, Sharon. Here's why. Compared to normal marketing. Normal marketing, if we're going out to strangers, I'm going to guesstimate we'd get somewhere between 60 and 70% opting out.
Possibly. I don't know this guy. I don't like this. I don't trust him.
Exactly. But these are people that are already in your network. So theoretically, they know you. Theoretically, they like you, right? So chances are they're not going to be opting out. A few of them will, but not tons of them. And a few more will over time, but that's okay. That's the way life works. The second reason we get fewer opt-outs is I kind of give them a little bit of a guilt trip. So when I'm doing that transition message, I say, you can always click unsubscribe at the bottom of any of the emails, and you'll be opted out immediately. My feelings will be devastated for a little while, but eventually I'll get over it. I say that tongue in cheek with a smile on my face.
Feelings will be devastated.
I say it with a smile on my face. It's joking, but it's a little guilt trip there, right? So if you do all of that stuff, you're not going to get very many opt-outs. And here's the cool thing. You mentioned this, and it's very soft. This initial marketing thing is not designed to get you investor meetings. All of our marketing moving ahead is designed to get us investor meetings. That's what we're looking for. This one is just, it's priming the pump. It's just the first shot across the bow. But here's the cool thing, Sharon. About half the times that we do this with our clients, they'll actually have people reaching out and going, hey, Sharon, what's this real estate thing you're doing? I didn't know you were doing real estate. That's cool. I'd like to find out more about that. So they actually end up having meetings and quite often raising capital just from this, even though it wasn't designed for that.
It's so interesting that you say that. It made me think of something that someone else told me about raising capital. And that was, don't prejudge people. Oh, you might think that Uncle Harry, who drives this beat up truck and lives in a tiny house and looks like he's homeless, that he doesn't have any money. maybe he looks homeless because he never spends any money. It's all in the bank.
Exactly. Yeah, there was a book years ago called The Millionaire Next Door.
Mm-hmm.
And that book showed that the vast majority of North America's millionaires don't look like Hollywood says millionaires should look. They're everyday people driving everyday vehicles, living in everyday houses, who are exceptionally good with their money. I mean, back in the day, geez, if we had seen Sam Walton driving around in his beat up pickup truck with his hunting dogs in the back, you would not assume he was the richest man in the world at that time. And same with
Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett, yeah, he lives in the same house since 1950, whatever. Right? So I think his company probably owns 8 blocks around him, and it's all super high security. But who knows, right? So
yeah.
So we don't want to make those assumptions. Sometimes the people that are all flash don't have any cash, and the people that are much more humble do have do have quite a bit to work with.
That is such good information for folks that. I'd be willing to bet you most folks do it wrong. Would you venture to say that there's a big learning curve?
I would definitely say most folks do it wrong. And unfortunately, most folks do it wrong and have their own version of the experience I went through. And then they quit. And then they're stuck, right? They're stuck with 2 or 3 properties in their portfolio. They can only do a deal every 5 to 10 years once they've saved up enough money for another down payment or got enough equity to refinance another property and buy another one. So it's really, really slow growth if you're trying to be a one-person show, a Lone Ranger investor, right? And quite a few people give it a kick at the can and then give up because they fail, which makes sense. There's not that much good information out there about how to do it. So yeah, it's unfortunate.
There's not a lot of information, and people that are in circles, like I belong to a group up in Chicago, and there are a lot of private money lenders up there. There's a lot of capital, but they are focused on that group. They've built relationships, and there are hundreds of people in there, and it's like you never have to worry about money. And we should all have been in that enviable position. You can scale, you can grow so much faster if you take the money out of the equation. But don't need a down payment. Nope, don't need a down payment, don't need anything. Just need the ability to refi out of the property in most cases. That's what you need.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense.
So let's talk about your new podcast, How to Raise Capital 101 show.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this, Sharon. There's a brand new podcast that I'm just launching. And again, the whole goal of the show is to show mom and pop real estate investors exactly what to do and how to do it to raise their first 6 figures in a matter of weeks, and perhaps even the first 7 figures in a matter of months, even if they're starting from scratch. So again, yeah, like you mentioned, it's called the How to Raise Capital 101 show. You can find it anywhere that you like to listen to podcasts, or you can go to the website. It's called raisecapital101show.com. And I've done something kind of a little different with this podcast, Sharon. And that is that the first 9 episodes are really kind of like a mini course walking people through my entire, what I call my money partner formula. So that has 3 phases. Each phase has a couple of steps in it. So the first 9 episodes walk people through that entire money partner formula process.
Awesome. And I'm assuming you're going to tell people how they need to show up. This is another big problem. How do people need to show up to have that conversation with someone that's maybe going to give them some capital? Who do they have to be? What do they need to have? What's their financial house need to look like? All those sorts of things.
Well, definitely. And I think the biggest thing that you need to have to genuinely and successfully start raising capital, you don't need to have a ton of deals on your belt. Even if you've just got 1 successful deal under your belt, the statistic I've heard is that 95% of the general population has never purchased a revenue property before. Their own house does not count as a revenue property. So if you got 1 successful deal under your belt, you're already ahead of 95% of the non-real estate people that you know, right? So it's coming in with that confidence that you're bringing massive value to the table. You've got the experience, you've got the know-how, you're bringing the deals, you're bringing the team to the table. You're bringing actually more value to the table than your investors are. And that's a mind shift that a lot of people have a hard time with, especially when they're just getting started, because They so desperately want and need that capital that they minimize the value that they bring to the table. So it's how do you need to show up? Yes, you should have your financial house in order. You should have a deal or two of experience under your belt. You should be able to answer the question, why, if somebody asks, why aren't you putting your own money into the deal? Because my money's already in all of these other deals. So that's why I'm making this available to investor partners. Otherwise, I wouldn't need investor partners, right? So that's part of it. So it's coming with that confidence and knowing that you bring a ton of value to the table. You're helping other people do what they cannot or will not do on their own, which is invest in real estate. And I don't know about you, Sharon, but I don't know any other investment class out there that we can exercise as much control over. I don't know any other investment class out there that has as many different ways that our partners, our investor partners, our joint venture partners, and ourselves can profit. Heck, depending on how you're doing deals, I'm aware of up to 8 different profit centers in just one real estate deal. I try and get that from crypto or gold or silver, or mutual funds, stocks, bonds, all that kind of stuff. Nothing comes close. So it's up to us to educate people about what we're up to with real estate investing. Not just educate them, edutain them. Edutain people about what we're up to and allow them to make an educated decision as to whether they like to invest with us or not. We're not trying to convince anybody. We're not trying to browbeat anybody into investing with us. We're showing them what we've got, and we're allowing them to join us if they'd like to.
You're showing them the opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. Without coming across as network marketing.
Well, true. Nobody wants to do that. Well, Dave, as always, thanks so much for coming on the show. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
The best way is to check out the new podcast. So again, raisecapital101show.com or wherever you listen to podcasts, the How to Raise Capital 101 show.
Okay, guys, this is a great show. You need to bookmark this one and come back to it because you will need to raise money, capital many times over your real estate investing career. So thanks again, Dave. And thanks to all the listeners who come out week after week and listen to the podcast. And please leave us a rating and a review over on iTunes. I would really appreciate it. We'll see you all same time, same place next week. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.